Hello, football fans. Welcome back. This is the season finale for the 2023 season of the Scuffed Football Podcast. This is Noah. I'm Ted. We only got one game to talk about, so I think we all know what we're all here for. I want to start with overtime and the decision by Mike Shanahan to take the ball first, because I think that's where the most controversy comes in from this game, right? I've seen a couple of conflicting statements where the 49ers both didn't know the rules and then they did know the rules and chose to go first so that they could have the third possession because Shanahan's brain works in non-human fashion. I guess I want your thoughts, man. I want you to tell me like where you would have chosen, why you think it was the right or the wrong decision. Like what's going on in your brain?
I mean, I think me personally, I would have deferred. I think that's just the better play. Like, I think, again, like if you were in field goal territory and even though it's like, a 4th and, 3 or whatever, like, you're in 4-down territory if you need like a touchdown or like, I just feel like it would have put less pressure or almost like we just knowing what you needed. I mean, that being said, like kind of like we had mentioned before, like you had pointed out, I mean, obviously the Chiefs defense was very tired, wanted to put them right back out. And I get it, but I think personally, I think I would have wanted it after.
I think if I were choosing, right, I think I would have chosen to go second. I'm with you there, but I think there's a lot to be said. I mean, you watch the 49ers final drive, as much shit as it sounds like I've given Brock Purdy this year, right? Like, I think that, like, he was actually doing a really good job at driving when it mattered. They had 2 drives that they really needed the score, and even though both of them turned into field goals in the fourth quarter and overtime, like, Purdy kind of got him there, right? And if Purdy's working his way through the defense that well, the Chiefs defense is tired, I can almost get why you'd want first possession, right? I think I'm with you, though, to an extent in the idea that, like, if they're tired and you're trying to capitalize on it, it's probably 4-down territory instead of kicking the field goal. Like, you kind of get put in a terrible spot where it's, you lose either way because you have to put points on the board. If you go for it on 4th and miss, well, you just wasted your possession in overtime, right? Any score loses you the game. But also the reasons that you took first are so that you can be aggressive, you can get out in front, you can capitalize on a tired unit. I just think it's really difficult, man. Like they just ended up in a really terrible spot because they went first. I don't blame Shanahan for doing it, not in the slightest, but I do think it's an interesting decision. I also want to talk a little bit about, while we're on the topic of kicking field goals, the 49ers missed an extra point, and I haven't seen a lot of people talking about this, right? It got blocked in their last touchdown. Obviously, the Chiefs then kicked the field goal at the end of the game to tie it, send them to overtime in the first place. But I think that the what if of had he made that extra point is very strange. So if they're up by 4 points, you know that the Chiefs can't play safe in their last drive, right? They have 10 seconds on the clock from the red zone, like at least 2 chances to make it to the end zone, right? However conservatively they used it, knowing that they had the opportunity to kick the field goal, fine, so be it, whatever. But I'm very interested in the idea that, like, had they been down by 4 and you have to make an aggressive play for the end zone knowing that you need a touchdown, there's the very distinct possibility that the Chiefs just won that game outright without overtime.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about it from the other way. I mean, to be honest, like there's also a very good chance that, a defense stands up. So, I mean, yeah, I think just the, knowing you're on the, brink of a championship and 2 more stops, puts it away for you. So, I mean, I don't know. I think it obviously did impact the game. I would have loved to see it. I think that would have been for a better, more entertaining game than what we got.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good game. Like, it was super competitive, and I'm happy that it wasn't a blowout in either direction, right? But I also found a lot of my time in this game just being kind of bored. There was no, outside of the one 49ers touchdown, right? There was no flash, there was no mystique, there was no, like, really huge, memorable plays. It was just kind of like, okay, both of these teams are pretty good on defense, and that's the game. Like, just, it was very, very strange to watch. I feel like I haven't seen a Super Bowl like that in a hot minute. So, in your opinion, Noah, looking forward to next year a little bit, why do you believe the Chiefs won? How do you feel like they continue moving forward? And alternatively, What was the one thing that the Niners didn't do that could have won them this game, and how do they improve that moving forward?
I don't even know. I think the Niners, honestly, I think they should have stuck with the run game. I think they were doing pretty decently. And then like in the third quarter, they kind of started moving away from it. And then they got back to it again in the fourth quarter. But again, I think if they just kind of stuck with it, I think we could have seen a different game. Chiefs wise, man, I don't know. They just got lucky. I don't know. I really, oh man, I couldn't care less. That because it was the Chiefs that won. If it was the Niners that won, I'd have a lot more to talk about. But
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think that the Chiefs played a very consistent game to what they usually do, right? Start with a balanced offense, a little bit of a deficit. It's kind of what they've done all season. And then you just let Mahomes play Patrick Mahomes football. And I don't think there's a whole lot to say to give the Chiefs more, like anything that they would have done any differently, right? From the 49ers, I think, strangely enough, I think the place where it felt like they lacked the most to me was game management. I think the way that they used their final drive in the fourth quarter was not a good utilization of time, right? There was like a couple very obvious blitz situations where if you've done your research over the past 2 weeks, like, Steve Spagnuolo is going to blitz you, right? But they designed plays that weren't things like screens or quick slants or something to beat that pressure. And then I found it very interesting that in that same drive, just before they kicked their field goal to go ahead, I find it very interesting that they decided to leave 2 minutes for Patrick Mahomes. Like you mentioned, they did kind of abandon the run game a little bit, but even if you abandon the run game, you make it a passing situation, right? Do things that keep the ball in bounds that take more time off the clock. When the game is tied, all you have to do is kick the field goal to go ahead, right? Like, you don't need to score. You're not in a pressure situation. Even if you don't score, the game is tied. You're like, there's very small chance if you eat up the entire clock that something bad is going to happen where you don't get the opportunity to win the game. And I found it very strange that on all 3 downs in their last possession, they elected to throw the ball and left so much time for Mahomes. It's not a thing that I feel like I can say about Shanahan offenses a lot. Like, I feel like the one thing he does well is read defenses, play the right game, call the right plays. Like, the scheming is always really good. And I found it kind of strange that as an Eagles fan whose play calling has sucked all season long, I could watch somebody else's coach who I considered to be well above and beyond and say, that seems like the wrong call.
Yeah.
I also found it weird the way in which they didn't necessarily utilize Deebo Samuel. I know the broadcast kind of made a big deal about the fact that Deebo was out. I know he had a couple catches to extend some drives, right? But what did he have, 3 catches for 33 yards or something along those lines? Like, he was not a very involved guy. And I guess I found it interesting that when your benefits on offense are having so many weapons that they just elect not to use one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I know he went out for a little bit with the little, side injury. Again, he was able to still play through it, but maybe that's that hindered him. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, they just didn't. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I will be interested to see how well the 49ers keep up next year. I mean, obviously a lot of their issue moving forward is going to be salary cap and keeping all of these pieces, right? But as long as Purdy's cheap and these guys all stay on the roster, I mean, I don't see any reason they couldn't be back here and competing again next year.
No, yeah, exactly.
But, well, like we said, real short one, but we gotta, you can't not cover the big game, you know what I mean? One last thing before we get out of here, Noah, way too early bets. Who do you see winning the big game next year? That's where I'm going to leave us.
Buffalo Bills.
Somehow I knew that was coming. Yeah, I think if I had to put money on it, I'm taking the Chiefs again, just because that's just what they do. Man. As much as I hate it, it's what they do. But I think that if I'm picking somebody with the idea of make this bet turn into money, I'm probably picking the 49ers. I mean, their roster's still just as good. The game management stuff is relatively easy to fix. I don't see this being a whole lot different this time next year.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching this season. I know it's a short one to leave y'all off on, but it's only one game. We don't have a whole lot here. So, all right. Well, we will see you here next season, a few months from now. See you guys later. Adios.